name is Nick Satinover. I am an artist and educator based out of Murfreesboro, Tennessee, which is about 30 miles southeast of Nashville. I'm an assistant professor of art at Middle Tennessee State University, where I teach all of the printmaking classes and manage the printmaking facilities. So I grew up in and around Dayton, Ohio, and after graduate school ended up moving back to the East Dayton area. A lot of the work I was doing throughout school at Illinois State University and beyond dealt with the kind of dichotomies and contrasts that are just present in a kind of post-industrial town like Dayton, Ohio. So it's a site of innovation, but also a place that was hit pretty hard by the recession, with a lot of factory labor kind of shuttering and moving away. In my time living there, I saw the closure of the General Motors assembly plant in Moraine. So there's a lot of these kind of post-industrial spaces, factories that were no longer being used. But it is a site of innovation, the invention of powered flight, and the largest holder of patents for a single city. So what you're seeing now is kind of this resurgence of use and kind of entrepreneurship in that area. So growing up with that amount of contrast and duality, I think really informed my interest as a visual artist. So a lot of the work in Coalesce is rooted in these ideas of pushing together disparate things, of oppositional forces engaging with one another in a single image or within a space. All right, so in terms of designing work, I'm not much of a drawer or a draftsperson. I don't really sketch, but my process for developing works is rooted in observation of the built environment or of place and space. So I tend to move around either by walking or running and kind of make observations, and then those observations get developed through writing, note-taking, and a lot of editing and kind of like beta runs. So ultimately, the design process is kind of different from the research process. I think visually, I'm drawn to forms, again, that have a lot of dichotomies and a lot of contrast. And so I'll develop sketches that are very rough, thumbnails that are kind of trying to put together an idea, two different patterns in the company of one another or a frame within a frame, and then situate these phrases or notes within those, and being very conscious of, the ways I've done it before, so that they're somewhat self-referential, but also looking at kind of my own history of making those, so I can design new options. So if I have, a divided composition, how many different ways can I divide the page in half and put something in the middle of it, and kind of explore the limitations of that rule and try to make as many options with that same rule. So a lot of it is about establishing a structure and designing within that structure, and that kind of is a top-down way of making for me. So I have a lot of rules and limitations, and within those rules and limitations, I'm pretty free to make a lot of creative decisions and explore a lot of possibilities, because I've already cut away the kind of hesitation of a lot of infinite options. And I kind of find that limitation is really good for making creative and strategic decisions. So for me, printmaking has a relationship to labor and production and kind of a more democratized image. It also has a relationship to signage and text. So there's kind of an intrinsic link to things you see out in the landscape, didactic information, but also the limitations and kind of exponential variables of the rules of printmaking are really interesting to me. So you have to design a way to work with them to accomplish your goal, and often you're having to work around pretty severe limitations, whether they be size or whether they be the amount of colors, whether they be time contingent. So for me, the limitations of printmaking allow really, really precise and strategic thinking and planning. And like I said, I tend to identify the structure and work within that. So printmaking provides a structure, and it's kind of within that structure that I can do a lot of improvisation and develop images that are kind of built upon a set of rules. And most of the prints are built through a reduction process, so printing a layer and then overprinting with less information and overprinting with less information. So it kind of secures together an image where there can be a lot of disparate information, but because it's all been put together with precise registration and kind of built from one layer all the way in the back to the layer closest to you as a viewer, it's going to kind of lock together and look coherent. So the title of this exhibition, I have thought about the word coalesce, both mirroring the repetition and the kind of division that's present in all the works, and also in the layout of the gallery being kind of a left wall and a right wall that kind of mirror one another. And each work is divided in a way that mirrors left and right with approximate symmetry. And it's also a coming together of disparate materials. And so the left wall and the right wall are equally numbered works that are made of those divided surfaces, and they kind of reflect one another, but they also unify as they're kind of mirroring one another. And the work in the furthest wall, the large installation, is kind of a giant distillation of that same concept. So the layout of the gallery is reflected in the layout of each piece. And then for me, the title is talking about the coming together of disparate materials or disparate things or disparate ideas. And that's really at the heart of what is driving all of these works I've created for the show. So when I was researching graduate schools back in 2008 and 2009, and I had applied to study at Illinois State, largely to do with the faculty who are there now and who were there previously. I was invited to visit before I made a decision, and one of the stops was at the MCAC. And there was a show of Illinois artists from around the state. And I remember being really impacted by the quality and breadth of the work in that show, and thinking that, regionally speaking, this was a place that was showing a lot of great artists, and that the Central Illinois region must be kind of an incubator for really thoughtful artists. So for me, it's kind of a return home in a lot of ways to show in Bloomington, and then to finally have an exhibition at the MCAC is kind of the completion of a circuit where it really kind of predated my attendance at Illinois State and really got me excited for going there because I could see what was happening in the region. And then to come back and show there is really meaningful to me. It's kind of a full circuit, and I'm really appreciative for the opportunity.